Our pop culture is a crazy mess. It's all of our TV shows, all of our music, all of our books that we're reading. It's all targeted to kids, to teenagers, and it is taking us away from Jesus. And we don't even see it right away because it's a slow process. But if you're feeling like your relationship with God isn't getting anywhere, if you're feeling like something has to change, it's probably what you're feeding your mind. Today, I just want to talk about how one of the devil's biggest way of taking people who are trying to live their life for Jesus, just like you and me, and trying to turn them away from God is actually through the books that we're reading, the TV shows we're watching, and the music we're listening to. I've experienced this in my life. I know so many friends who've experienced it in theirs. I've talked to a bunch of Christians, and they felt that through what the world is feeding us, they've actually fallen into lust, self-centered desires. They want to go partying even though they know it's not good for them. They are wanting to do drugs and drink alcohol. They're feeling more depressed than ever, more anxious than ever. There's no doubt that this is linked to our pop culture and what the world is trying to feed us. This is how the devil is trying to take us away from God and follow the world. It's very slow, it's very sneaky. We have to work together, you, me, to put an end to this.
In order to know how these TV shows are actually affecting us, it's good to know why they're wrong. Let's quickly ask bestie ChatGPT which shows are most popular for teens in 2025. Looking through what ChatGPT gave us, I can see a lot of the popular shows that I've seen and that I know other people have seen. It highlights shows specifically like Stranger Things, XO Kitty, The Summer I Turned Pretty, Gilmore Girls. Shows like Gilmore Girls seem really innocent, but it actually puts a big emphasis on teenage relationships, sexual relationships before marriage. Summer I Turned Pretty has cheating, sex, drugs, alcohol, all of this for teenagers. Plus, the main character is literally splitting up a household of two brothers by just going back and forth and dating them both. XO Kitty deals a lot with lust, also LGBTQ plus relationships.
At this point, I know I sound hyper religious, but Jesus says that what you focus on is what grows. If you're focusing on lust, that's what's going to grow in you. If you're focusing on drinking and partying, those desires are going to grow in you as well. Satan is so evil and so gross, but he's pretty smart. And what he wants us to do is to get a little comfortable with these ideas of sin. Our TV shows can influence us. And I always thought, no, like, even though the shows that I'm watching have cheating, it has alcohol, it has drugs, it has LGBTQ plus relationships, that's not me. I know what God says, so I can just watch this. And you know what it's going to do? It's actually going to help me because I'll be familiar with what the world thinks. That's all twisted stuff to get our minds to be more familiar with those things. I did see after not even a year of watching these shows, I started to want what the characters in these shows were having. I started to change where my mindset was. And I wasn't putting God first anymore. Characters seem to be having fun, so it can't be that bad anyway. But we have to remember, this is just fiction. Our world is so good at putting together TV shows and movies that it doesn't seem like fiction anymore. But it is just fiction. Things that they try to make seem so good, like partying, cheating, lust, LGBTQ plus relationships, they make that all seem perfect, but really it breaks you more and more and more the more you get into it. Also, so interesting, if you take a look at how long you're actually watching a TV show, each episode is like probably 40 minutes to an hour. Multiply that by however many episodes are in a season, which could be like 8 to 10, and then multiply that by how many seasons there are, which can be probably up to 8, sometimes more, and you have spent hours of your life focusing on these things. And we know that as Christians, we can become a slave to our thoughts, and what we think about ends up growing within us and leads to our actions. All of us watching this video, we want to be children of God. We want to serve Jesus, but no, we cannot serve two masters. And I tried for so long to serve both this world and my fleshly desires through the shows that I was watching or the books that I was reading, and then I would turn to God and be like, hey, God, I serve you as well. But Jesus doesn't want us to be lukewarm. He wants us to be all in for him or nothing.
Something needs to change. It's either we have to stay away from the things that we're going to entertain us, or the entertainment that we're going to has to change, and it probably has to be somewhere in the middle and a mix of both. But the question that I have is, what now? Do we just pull away from the pop culture and the TV shows that everybody watches and kind of have nothing left for us? Because we want something that is like entertaining and, also doesn't take us away from Jesus. But it seems like these Christian shows specifically they're not really bringing us towards Jesus. They're kind of boring and low budget. And then we've got the secular shows that everybody else is watching. They're super entertaining, but we can see the product of what we're watching in our own lives. In this video, we're going to be talking all about what we should be doing next. I'll also be talking about the effects that this entertainment is having on us. Let's actually take a look at some stats. Anxiety rates from 1990 to 2021 have increased in teenage girls 52%. These are girls aged 10 to 21. 52% in the past 30 years, and the biggest spike was in 2019. So this isn't just a COVID issue. This isn't just an issue of us being isolated. It has to do with the media that we're consuming. Social media, books, TV shows, music, movies, all of this are impacting us. This stat is even crazier. From the year 2010 to 2020, self-harm and suicide rates in teenage girls have gone up by 162% and in boys by 91%. These are scary, scary stats. A survey in 2021 shows that 26% of American high school students are identifying as LGBTQ+. The thing is, with Jesus, we do not have to suffer from these things. We don't have to suffer from our sexuality. We don't have to suffer from mental health issues. We don't have to be a slave to self-harm or suicidal thoughts. Jesus died for it all, so we do not have to be in bondage to them anymore. There's no doubt that it is our media and what we are consuming that is causing this crazy spike in our mental health. If you don't believe me, let's head to the bookstore. I'm at the bookstore and I picked out a few of the most popular ones that I see people talking about the most and I've personally read. First, we have The Summer of Broken Rules. Next, there's The Summer I Turned Pretty, which is actually a TV show as well. Next, we have The Inheritance Games, which is also super, super popular amongst teenagers. Moving more into the fantasy genre, we've got Caraval. And then this last one is actually a young reader's one. It's 9 to 12, and it is The Land of Stories. Let's look through Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 through 11 to see what the Bible says about this very topic. Since you have been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. It says you have been raised to new life, which means we're not living in our old ways anymore. And we're supposed to set our sights, set our minds, set what we are focusing on the realities of heaven. What are the realities of heaven? They're not fake. They're not fiction. And no, I'm not saying that you can't read fiction. I'm not saying you can't watch shows at all that are fiction. What I'm saying instead is don't be setting your minds on these fiction things. I know so many people who are like, I've got a bunch of book boys that I'd want to date, but no boys in real life. Haha. We don't want to set our minds on these things of the world, on these fiction things. We have to set them on God. It goes on to say, think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. Think about the things of God, not just about lust, not about how you want to be perceived by others. Don't be thinking about these worldly things, but be thinking about the Lord. For you have died to this life, and your real life is hidden with Christ in God. And when Christ, who is your life, is revealed to the whole world, you will share in all his glory. So put to death, put to an end, complete end, the sinful earthly things lurking within you. And then this is the part that goes right with what we're talking about. Have nothing to do with sexual immorality, impurity, lust, and evil desires. Those things are all in our books. Don't be greedy, for a greedy person is an idolater, worshiping the things of this world. Because of these sins, the anger of God is coming. You used to do these things when your life was still a part of this world, but now it's time to get rid of anger, rage, malicious behavior, slander, and dirty language. Don't lie to each other, for you have stripped off your old sinful nature and all of its wicked deeds. And this is something that we see so often in these books and these TV shows. The characters are always doing these little white lies, and I was talking to my sister about this, and she said the fact that our society has a name, Little White Lies, shows how desensitized we are to lying. The Bible doesn't say, do a little white lie, like no biggie. It says, do not lie, period. Put an end to that. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. In this new life, it doesn't matter if you are a Jew or a Gentile, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbaric, uncivilized, slave or free. Christ is all that matters, and He lives in all of us. Because Christ is all that matters, we can give up these old things, our old ways of life,
because it's not just a religious thing. It's not staying away for the sake of being a good person. It is choosing to put your mind on something else. I think a lot of the time as Christians, we think that it's about stopping sinning and just like not sinning, but it's more than that. It's going away from sin to replace it with something better, to replace it with something that helps the kingdom of God. So we're not just stopping reading these books and watching these TV shows and listening to music that is harming us, but we are instead going to focus our minds on the Lord, because that is going to be what ultimately lets us share in his glory when he returns. There's an ant on my iPad. So gross. Oh, gross. I shouldn't be sitting on the floor, should I? Okay, distractions from the enemy. Let's get to Philippians 4, verse 8. I'm also going to move this, guys. And I feel like there's ants in my hair. Gross. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about these things that are excellent and worthy of praise. When we're reading books and we're watching TV shows, these are hours of our lives that are going into thinking about these things that are not of God. You're called to think about what is true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. We as Christians have a lot to do to change. So how do we do that? The devil is trying to get into our minds through seemingly innocent things, and it is so sad. Nobody's telling us that the books that we're reading could actually bring us to sin, which they did for me. I've got a video about that here. The music you're listening to, I know a bunch of people whose minds have been changed through the music that they listen to. Satan is trying to get to our minds as Christians in any way he can, because if he can't touch us through us not being a Christian, he can at least make us think that we're serving God with our whole heart, and make us think that the things that we're doing are okay when they're actually not. So whatever you're going through, I just want to let you know Jesus has died for it all. Whether it's anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, alcohol, self-centeredness, anything, Jesus died for it all. You do not have to carry this burden anymore. The biggest dream that I have is to start my own publishing house where I have Christian authors from around the world who write amazing books, and maybe even expand it into the film industry later. We'll see how that goes. But I would love to have them write stories that don't have to be like this weird sheltered Christian kind of story where it's just so weird. We've all read them, and if you haven't, good for you. I don't want that to be it's only an interesting story that leads us away from Jesus, or it's this so boring, weird, cringe fest over there. In our art, Jesus is going to shine through if our heart is in the right place. Every story I write, or painting I make, or song I play on my guitar, even if it is not directly talking about Jesus, it still is, because that is my inspiration. Until then, through Jesus and only through Jesus do we have the power to say no to the things of this world and to stand against it. Guys, we're not alone. I know sometimes it feels like we are, especially being young Christians in a culture that isn't made for us. But we have Jesus. Through him, we have the power to stay away from the things of this world. Through him, we have the power to rise above and to be the difference maker in our pop culture. We just have to remember to focus on Jesus above everything else. And it is hard. Trust me, it is hard. The next season of The Summer I Turned Pretty is coming out in a couple of months, and I've seen the other seasons, but I know it's not good for me. All my friends are getting watch parties and stuff with it, but I'm choosing to say no, not because I'm super hyper religious and I'm afraid of sin. That's not the case. It's because I know that Jesus doesn't want me to meditate on things like lust and cheating and such self centered desires, and especially being just based off of how we look on the outside. He cares a whole lot more about what is going on in our hearts. So that's what I'm choosing. Instead of choosing what the world wants and what the world says is innocent, I'm choosing Jesus. And I know you want to as well. So let's do that together.